Mechanics. Today I'm going to review billets and talk about how they work at OCS in particular. I'll give you the details and then follow it up with some advice that I hope you'll find helpful for your time in billets at OCS. So let's get started. To better understand OCS billets, it's important to know that the organizational structure at OCS and TBS is modeled after an infantry regiment in the fleet. So let's review that structure starting from the smallest unit to the biggest. In the fleet, infantry units follow the rule of threes. The smallest tactical unit in an infantry regiment is a fire team, and 3 fire teams make a squad, 3 squads make a platoon, 3 platoons make a company, 3 companies make a battalion, and 3 battalions make a regiment. Then 3 infantry regiments combined with the other ground units in the Marine Corps make up a Marine division. OCS and TBS may not follow the rule of threes exactly. So for example, you may have more than 3 platoons in your company, but the unit levels remain the same. The discrepancy in numbers is strictly to accommodate for the amount of people that need to get trained. At OCS, you will live with your platoon, but you'll move with your company. There will be other companies on deck also going through OCS, but they will follow a different schedule. So now that we have an idea about units, let's talk further about billets. Like I mentioned in my video on rank, a billet is essentially a job in the Marine Corps. It comes with responsibilities related to the unit that it falls under. A billet is different than rank or MOS. So for example, a first lieutenant who is an infantry officer can be a platoon commander or a company executive officer. Now every unit needs a leader, and so specific billets are created to address that need. Also, a unit, as it increases in size, requires additional unique billets to keep it running. So for example, each squad has a squad leader. However, when you combine 3 squads and form a platoon, you now also need a platoon sergeant and a platoon commander. So those are 2 billets that are created because of the increase in size of the unit. Since OCS is intended to train, screen, and evaluate you, billets give the staff an opportunity to evaluate how you function in a position of authority. So when you are in a billet at OCS and TBS, you will have the additional responsibilities that a Marine with that billet in the fleet would have. The responsibilities for each billet will be spelled out in the candidate regs, which I won't discuss here. At OCS, the possible billets will be both officer and enlisted Marine billets. So for example, in the fleet, the company gunnery sergeant billet is filled by an enlisted Marine, but at OCS, the equivalent would be filled by a candidate. So that would be the candidate company gunnery sergeant billet. Billets last for 2 days or 3 on the weekends. And throughout OCS, you should have at least 1 billet at every level of leadership up through company level. Here's a list of the billets that you may have to hold. Your billet will be under the direct control and scrutiny of the staff. For any billet above a fire team leader, you will have a member of the staff who will evaluate you and counsel you in verbal and written form after your time in the billet has been completed. Also, you will have to complete evaluations on your fellow billet holders depending on which billet you have held. For example, a candidate platoon commander will evaluate his candidate platoon sergeant, so on and so forth. This continues at TBS, though the billets are held for a longer time. And that's pretty much all of the details on how a billet at OCS works. If you have any questions about the specifics, definitely feel free to ask. Now, my advice for billet holders is as follows. A billet is a lot easier to hold if you win people over before holding it. You'll find at OCS that holding a billet doesn't automatically endear people to you or make them want to follow you, crazy as it sounds. You can win people over by exhibiting the following traits. First is hustle. What I mean by this is try to attack every task that's in front of you, whether it's something simple like getting dressed or something a little bit more complicated like doing PT. Effort is always an endearing quality. Second is goodwill. Try your best to stay above the politics and general chaos of the environment. OCS is a place where it's easy to dislike and look down on and get contentious with the people around you. If you can avoid getting sucked into that mindset and that atmosphere, other candidates will notice and it will calm them down as well. Just always remember to take a step back, because OCS is a very small slice in your Marine Corps career, and it's a good time to practice not to freak out, because you'll need that a lot more in the future than being nasty with your peers. Third is service. Find ways to care for the people around you and make their lives easier, even if it's not reciprocated or even noticed. What I started doing, for example, is later on during OCS, I would collect everybody's trash from weapons maintenance. And it was a small action that forced me to think about others first. So look for opportunities to do that kind of thing. Now, when you're actually in a billet, try executing on the following. First, be ready before your team. If that means that you're up earlier on a short night, then get up earlier. Second, keep your team informed. Pass word as early and as often as possible. You don't want anybody getting burned because you didn't give them critical information. Third, check to make sure that everybody on your team is on the same page as far as what's going on and what they need. Now, this can also be referred to as PCC's PCIs, which is pre-combat checks, pre-combat inspections. There is a balance that you'll need to find between personal accountability, what people do for themselves, and leaders' accountability, which is your responsibility for making sure that everybody on your team is squared away. You will need to find that balance with your particular team at OCS. Just know, if something goes wrong, leadership always takes the first hit. Fourth, don't turn into a dictator. There's a difference between leadership and training, and you are not at OCS to train anybody. Leadership isn't making your subordinates do silly things for no reason. Let the sergeant instructors do that. With that said, you will still have to run around and yell at people. Just don't develop a Napoleon complex while you're doing that. Now, this advice isn't exhaustive, but it should set you up to excel in your billets. Unfortunately, some of this I personally learned the hard way. So learn from my mistakes and capitalize on your opportunity when you're in a billet. I hope that was helpful. Any questions, let me know. And remember, it is not about you. Take care.